see, and this is also from the same group, from Barnett and Prineus, you actually see the myelin unwrapping. So the oligodendrocytes dying, therefore the myelin, which is made by oligodendrocytes, is dying, and it's unraveling. This is not being attacked by the immune system. This is unraveling dying myelin. So this is their assessment of what's going on. So you have a normal oligodendrocyte, which is wrapping around the axons. So the axon's in the middle. The thicker is the myelin. This guy makes all the wrapping around of the myelin. There's a microglial cell in there. So the next thing that happens is if you look, the nucleus has become dark. So now this is apoptotic. This is a dying oligodendrocyte. The microglial cells come in, but still to deal with the dying oligodendrocyte, and it's not felt later that macrophages are coming in to clean up the myelin debris. From the same group. So they start with unknown factor. This is not my poor scanning. The paper actually had this. For some reason, in Australia, they're still using lousy black and white slides. I don't know what that's about. Anyway, they say unknown factor, then leads to microglial activation and oligodendrocyte apoptosis. This is the beginning. Eventually, we're going to end up with white cells coming in to clean up debris. But it all begins with this. So what is the unknown factor, right? That's what we really want to know. So looking at this picture again, so we've already decided that the autoimmune theory is just wrong. Wrong enough that I really think it's sort of gutsy of neurologists to still be telling patients this is known. But we got a second opinion from the leading neurologist at UCSVI. I said, what's the cause of MS? And she said, oh, it's a cocktail of viruses. That's just not correct. It's not. Because I don't think neurologists should be saying that anymore. The Zamboni theory is that because of, so I'm drawing here, here's our red cells that are oxygenated. They turn blue as they become deoxygenated. So by putting them sideways, I'm showing that we're having either reflux or reduced flow. So that's still kind of an unresolved issue. Is it reflux or is it reduced flow? Well, the Zamboni theory is the reflux is basically causing red cells to bang through a weakened venial wall. They get through into the parenchyma, and the white cells attack the red cells that shouldn't be there, and the iron that's coming out of the dying red cells. So this is sort of the Zamboni theory, that myelin is really an innocent bystander, that the red cells that have gotten in because of reflux and the iron that's in there, which is a free radical, incites an inflammatory response. And the inflammatory response then is secondarily attacking the myelin. So I think the unknown factor, how do I go backwards?
Bottom right, hover.
Hover?
Hover, bring your mouse to the bottom right.
Oh, wait, it won't work. I'm not going back.
Okay, yeah. I don't know, maybe the arrow will work. Oh, arrows work.
Yes, arrows work.
Arrows work.
Okay, so the unknown factor. I think the evidence is convincing to me, at least, that the unknown factor is decreased perfusion and diffusion. So now there have been a number of studies. I think it was Mark who mentioned the study before. So perfusion is, we need to say a word. It's not, when it says cerebral blood flow, that's not cerebral blood flow in the vessel. It's cerebral blood flow in voxels. It's an MRI measure. It's measuring cerebral blood flow in the tissue. How well is the blood moving in the tissue? Not how well is it moving in the arteries and the veins. So in general, you measure with three different measures: cerebral blood flow, cerebral blood volume, and mean transit time. And so sure enough, in MS patients, the perfusion is significantly reduced. And I'm just going to show you several different studies that show the same thing. So in this one, poor flow is green. So in a control versus RMS versus primary progressive, we see The green area is areas of low flow, so this is a normal pattern, this is what you expect, and then as you with relapsing remitting, you see greater loss in flow, and with primary progressive, you see a much greater. So this is not related to new lesions, this is not gadolinium enhancing breakdown, this is poor perfusion going on in the white matter, whether or not there's an attack. This is from a different author, Rashid, 2004. These are the areas of abnormal perfusion in MS compared to normals. This is his data again, looking at white matter perfusion, showing it is statistically significantly reduced in all MS patients, 0.07 level compared to normals. Another way of looking at it, so this is from Varga, 2009. This is in a clinical isolated state versus relapsing remitting, and once again we see that the cerebral blood flow, periventricular, normal occurring white matter, you gotta love that term, normal occurring white matter, by definition is not normal, but it's what you see in the periventricular white matter around lesions, so it looks normal, but it's really not. So once again, you see decreased perfusion in the cutaneous and in the periventricular normal occurring white matter. One more study, this is Law, 2004. So we have the pattern of the different options, so periventricular white matter, and so clearly, so normals are, these are normals, so cerebral blood flow is significantly abnormal in periventricular white matter, in intermediate white matter, closer to the cortex, and in subcortical white matter compared to normal. So they're all really telling us the same thing. This is also from Varga. Once again, green is poor, is abnormal flow. This is in a clinically isolated syndrome. Clinically isolated syndrome means there's been one episode, but they can't make the diagnosis of MS. They can't make the diagnosis of MS in general. But they particularly can't make it because of the rule that said you have to have 2 episodes to make a diagnosis. So Devin was told he didn't have MS, even though the lesions were sure looked like MS. He didn't get told he had MS for 6 more months when he had a second attack. So now we bought the diagnosis, which also bought him the right to have ribbon for $45,000 a year. So this is the most recent one. This is Zamboni's 2011. It's basically showing the same thing again. Only in this case, red is abnormal. So we see the pattern of significantly reduced cerebral blood flow. In the top one, cerebral blood volume and mean transfer time. And one more study, basically comparing, in this study, Doppler was compared to decreased perfusion. So he compared the decreased perfusion on this method to his Doppler findings and showed that there was a correlation between the two. So this is really an amazing study, and there were 2 of them. This is looking at perfusion and diffusion. Diffusion is the movement of water molecules out of the blood vessels through the brain. So it's not the same as cerebral blood flow through the tissue. It's random water molecules moving. But still basically looking at what's going on in the swamp, right? So you've got your main streams, those are blood vessels, and then you have the parenchyma around it. That would be the swamp. It's how well fluid's moving through the swamp. You want things to be moving through the swamp. You don't want it stagnating. These are all studies showing stagnation in the brain tissue. So this is scans that were done monthly leading up to a new lesion. So time zero in the middle is the onset of a new lesion. So what you see is with the diffusion and with the perfusion, as you move toward the time of a new lesion, you see perfusion and diffusion building up. So perfusion and diffusion build up over several months prior to the onset of a new lesion, preceding the onset of a new lesion. Diffusion and perfusion are happening way before the immune system even knows there's anything going on.